breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
Good morning from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an excellent podcast for you. We're going to start off with our interview today, as we're going to have Adam Rosenberg aboard in a minute or so, talking about what we're all going to be expecting in the second half of the season. I know that he does a great job on the prop market, so we're going to be discussing what we might be taking a look at in terms of the second half of the season with regards to some of those props as well, and we're going to be chatting with him about things that he's bullish/bearish on going into the second half of the season, so we're going to have some fun there. This is going to be an hour plus long podcast, so I do have to take 2 breaks, so we're going to be giving you guys the National League games and the American League games in section number 2 of the podcast, and then to wrap things up, we've got a lot of interleague games on the podcast. Those will be in the final segment. So we've got ourselves a nice clean podcast, and we're back to normal. We finally got through, and we trudged along, and we've got games again for the next few months, and that makes us all happy. And then when we run out of baseball games, the college basketball season starts up. So the cycle of life there. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letter CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions, everything is powered by Edge Boost. Over at Edge Boost, they're making sure that bettors are able to access the funds that they so badly want to, and they make sure that 100% of gambling transactions, they are all approved. When you go to edgeboost.bet, make sure you utilize that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That's going to get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $35, and let's have some fun with this one, as we do have one of our good friends in Adam Rosenberg aboard. He does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network and really does a little bit of everything. I know that he's one of the guys over there with Rhythm. He does a great job over at Handygraphs, the Dad's Bet Baseball Podcast, and so much more. You're able to follow him on Twitter/X at Hey Rosenberg altogether. And Adam, it's always great to be able to get you aboard. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man, it's great to talk to you again, Greg. And we had a little bit of a break, so I looked at football this week. I admit it, but I'm ready to get back into it. This is a good excuse to look at some stuff now.
Absolutely. We are going to be getting those games again. And as of right now, we are recording this as it's pretty much TBD across the board. But in terms of what you saw in the first half of the season, do you think that there might be a team that either surges or has a little bit of a fall off as compared to what we saw in the first half?
It's the Rays for me. I said this before. I know that the Rays are always a hot starting team. We've seen this every single year. I've been on your show in the past, and a couple years ago when the Rays were the hottest team in baseball, I said the Orioles are only 6 games behind them, and it's June. The Orioles won that division and the 1 seed. This Rays team has an atrocious bullpen, and it's gotten worse and worse over the last few weeks. You just had Caminero just made a pretty deep run in the home run derby. So there's extra swings. It's not a team that buys. And in terms of the teams that they're in the division with and they're battling with over for wild card positioning, Toronto I can expect to buy a little bit, and Boston has said that they're going to buy. The thing is that those 3 teams, they're all in the same division. So obviously there's going to be a lot of jostling, but I do think that this Rays team is going to probably cool off and have a little bit of a regression, especially on the betting side. Things will probably change because there'll be adjusted lines now based on having played a half a season down at Steinbrenner Field.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I do think that it's going to be a lot of fun to see what we get out of the Tampa Bay Rays moving forward. And just how do you take a look at the AL East in general? Because when it comes to that Eastern Division, the Yankees and the Blue Jays are those creme de la creme teams, but we did see the Red Sox have a really nice surge towards the back half of the first half as well.
The Red Sox felt like I was on an island with this, but I loved getting rid of Devers. I thought it was an addition by subtraction because while the Red Sox aren't really constructed correctly, they have a lot of guys that play the same position. Now everybody has a position. Bregman's going to be back. You and I can both agree Bregman was playing at arguably an MVP level before he got hurt. Absolutely the right guy on that team. I really do like the Red Sox. I think that they're obviously in deep need of starting pitching. Little known fact, they signed Sandoval in the offseason, who I liked on the Angels. He should be off the 60-day IL late summer, and so I don't know if he's coming back, but they're going to probably make some moves there. I do like that Red Sox team. Obviously, they had a really great position to close everything out. They had that sweep against the Nats, and then they swept two teams at home, including the Rays. I'm watching that Red Sox team, but I also do think at the end of the day, the Yankees are going to be the ones that are coming out of this East. The Yankees will buy aggressively more than any of those other teams, whether they overpay for Sandy or whether they make a move for Peralta or whatever they're going to do. That team's going to buy much more heavily than anyone else, and they still have the best player, in my opinion, on the planet, Aaron Judge, who, as we know, was to crush it in August. So the Yankees are going to take that top spot, and I think it's going to be a lot of movement between the Jays and the Red Sox.
It is going to be a lot of fun to see what all those teams do, and that Eastern Division is going to be a lot of fun, but also the NL East is one that I know is fun for you because you're a little bit of a man that follows the Philadelphia Phillies and so much more. As Adam Rosenberg, he does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. He is joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show, and how do you take a look at that race? Because with the New York Mets had a rough first half, had a rough back half of the first half of everything, but as we know, they do have the pockets to be able to spend. They are going to be a team that's going to be very active at the trade deadline, and I think that that's going to be so key for those top two teams.
They also second best record in baseball against teams above 500. Hitting June swoons and hitting July, we'll call it an extended June swoon because it went a week into July. That's just kind of what happens. They still were, by the way, 6-4 in their last 10. So as bad as everyone thinks that they were 6-4 in the last 10. It's just that they were 9-11 in their last 20 and 12-18 in their last 30. This Phillies team is going to aggressively buy because this is the window. And as we saw, All-Star MVP is about to be free agent Kyle Schwarber. I think it would be really, really great if they just said, hey, you know what, we just signed him now mid-season, re-signed him. But I don't think that that's going to happen. I have been pushing that. I do think that they need to kind of take the chips, take that big chip of Ranger Suarez and trade him for something big. I would love to see them. I think Tyler O'Neill would be someone who they should probably go after. It's an outfield bat that can obviously hit left-handed pitching. And the Orioles contract has a player opt-in after a year. So that's a 2-year deal that the Orioles don't really need on their roster. The Phillies are going to probably be the ones that do come out of this. It's Phillies and Mets. What I really don't get is why the market still prices the Braves. This team, by the way, is behind the Marlins by 2 games. It's not a good team, and they're just getting so much. They get this respect of -135. This is not a good Atlanta Braves team. This is their best pitcher. They ran into the ground so hard that he has a fractured rib. It's a 2-horse race here. I think obviously both those teams are going to buy, but the Phillies are going to be much more likely to do a big kind of splashy buy because this is a very small window for Dombrowski, and Cohen's a little bit different. He's going to kind of tinker. The Mets are also going to be getting back a lot of bodies that they've been waiting for, especially on the pitching side.
Yep, no question about it. I think that is going to be massive for them. And when it comes to the Mets side of things, Sean Manaea should be coming back relatively soon, just after we get back resumed in the second half as well. So I think that is going to be important for them. And just that entire wild card in both the National League and the American League, I think that's the biggest intrigue as well, because I take a look at what we've all got out there in terms of that last AL and NL spot. I feel like it's going to be very, very open, and it's all going to be based on what we see here in the next 10 to 14 days coming out of this All-Star break, because I do think that there's a lot of teams that are potential buyers if they go on a win streak, if they win a few games. And then you've got a lot of teams hovering right around 500 that if they go on a little bit of a skid, it's all over for them.
Teams that are kind of being held together with sticks. I actually think the Padres are kind of being held together with sticks. They're not prepared to buy because that's just not what they want to do. This team was actively shopping Michael King and Dylan Cease in spring training, and they haven't re-signed either of them. Michael King still has a mysterious injury that we don't know what it is. He's allegedly coming back soon. They have obviously that third wild card spot. Giants have been terrible since the Devers trade. I just don't overall like that team. The Diamondbacks have waved the white flag and have so many pieces that they can get. I would bank on a lot of those pieces, by the way, ending up on the Yankees. I feel like Geno Suarez is just kind of destined to become a Yankee. He kind of feels like that guy. It's just,
yes.
He's just feels like we are going to see him at third base for them, or, returning to the Mariners, but I don't see that one really coming. But look, I'm watching the Reds because the Reds have consistently this entire season had really good pitching. Their hitting hasn't gotten there, especially at home in a park that is extremely friendly for hitting. So all they need to do is get really hot in that. They still have a +31 run differential. Their Pythag is actually at 52 wins, and they're at 50 wins. They also have a great manager. They got Tito in there. I'm looking at the Reds. I don't think the Reds are going to make big moves. I think they're going to make some tinker moves, but I really do think that the Reds are kind of one of my favorite bets of Reds to get the 6th seed. I think that's a really good way to kind of place some of these markets or who's going to fall out and do these things. It's a real juicy price on letting Milwaukee fall out of it, but I just don't think that the Giants are going to be able to put it together to go up there. Their rotation is anchored by two guys who are pretty old or have histories of injury. The Cardinals are just kind of like, I think the Cardinals wish that they didn't have as good of a record as they do, because they're going to be in a lot better shape if they trade Helsley and a couple other guys and continue on their rebuild.
Yeah, Ben, I do think that the Cardinals are a very intriguing team, and I look at the entire NL Central as well as just being a little bit of a hodgepodge, because I know you sense that the Cardinals might be in for a little bit of a fall off. What are your thoughts on the Brewers? Because they're getting back more of their pitching, but it feels like an offense that is in the top two in terms of runs per game away from home. It's just a little bit unsustainable at this point.
They also aren't hitting home runs. And so, which is fine. Like, as a Phillies fan, like, maybe I'm just used to guys that manufacture home runs through home runs. But this is very different than last year's team that was offensively efficient without Yelich, and with William Contreras arguably having a top 5 type of season, and you nicknamed him MVP up until July. He was having a great season. Jackson Chourio has obviously fallen off a lot this year, sophomore slump, but I think that he'll be fine. That team consistently just has to find pitching across the board. They should be able to get that, but I don't think that the offense is sustainable, and I don't think that Quinn Priester, I've never liked Quinn Priester, and I know that he's one of the leaders for them. Everyone's got Jacob Mizrowski fever. Wait till people see Jacob Mizrowski the second time, because people compare him to Skeens. There's a gap between those two guys. I know he's got a real exciting fastball, but he's got control things. Those are going to come up. Chad Patrick, who's arguably one of the best rookie pitchers that they have on. They have actually multiple rookie pitchers on their rotation right now. None of that's sustainable. And, while the Cubs, I think we can agree, are going to be out in front and do all that stuff. Okay, I'm still looking at this Reds team to kind of crawl back into it and kind of go ahead of that Brewers team. Brewers are plus 240 to not make the playoffs, if you like that. But the problem that I have there is that, I can't really find multiple teams that fall out, and it would be a pretty considerable fall for them to fall out, but I'm not buying any stock into them overall.
Yep, I'm right there with you. With the Milwaukee Brewers, I think that it's a very fascinating team to take a look at moving forward. And then I do want to mention this team as well, because they've got such a great bullpen, but it is a bunch that they fell off towards first half as well. That would be a team that picked up Rafael Devers and the San Francisco Giants. How do you view them? Because they did seem to right the ship a little bit more going into the All-Star break, but that's another team that I feel a little bit suspect on.
I lived in the Bay Area from 2010 until 2020, so I was there kind of for the Giants' heyday, and it was great. They have that same kind of MO where it's a lot of different guys that are role players, but this isn't really a good lineup. Matt Chapman's solid. I'm really not a William Adames guy. Jong-Hoo has been good. A lot of this Giants team has prided themselves over the last few years on being a very low strikeout, high on base percentage team. And they're a high strikeout team right now. So they're a high strikeout team in a ballpark that's not great for hitters unless you're a lefty. They don't have a ton of lefties. They have unsustainable production that's coming out of Mike Yastrzemski. And I'm not a huge fan of their starting rotation overall. I think that it's a lot of plug and play in there and resting a lot on Justin Verlander, who is my age. I'm not really liking how this Giants team is put together. Like, their payroll's pretty high for the limited production that they have. This Giants team reminds me a lot more of what the Red Sox looked like before they traded Devers, ironically, now that they have him.
Yep, and I do think that it's going to be a team that is going to be worth watching moving forward, because if that bullpen looks the way that they did in the first few months, they might have a chance to be able to make the playoffs, and that is a rotation that I think is dangerous. And would you say that that could be a little bit of a boom or bust team? Because if the Giants were to make the playoffs, I think that they have a chance to be able to make some noise, but I think the biggest issue is actually making the playoffs.
Look, I guess they're three-man. Their three-man, I guess, would be Landon Raup, Robbie Ray, and that's how I look at these
Logan
teams.
Webb.
Logan Webb, yeah. So it'd be Logan Webb, Verlander, and Ray. And so that's a solid three-man. But I just don't think that this team can hit. And I just think that what's going to happen is, look, if that team makes the playoffs, they will end up having to go against probably the Cubs. By the way, this Giants team does not hit lefties well. What's going to happen is Matthew Boyd's going to strike out 11 guys in game one, and it's just going to put them in a hole to begin with. They could get in there and they could do it, but this isn't like those old Giants teams that used to steal bases, manufacture runs, had the Buster Posies in there, had like this kind of excitement that was going on across the board, the Brandon Crawfords, of the world. This isn't that team, I still don't really know what this Giants team's identity is. And that's a little bit struggling because to me, the biggest thing when I look at this lineup is I don't understand why a guy like Willie Adames is on that team. I just don't think that he fits in the same way that everyone else does. He's a classic 200 strikeout, very low batting average guy, and have never been into it. But if they get in, again, they have a good three-man, but I don't know if they're going to be the ones to get in. They're one of the ones I do think are going to continue to fall back because Posey made his big move. It's not as if they have just like infinite sums of money. I don't know what else they're going to probably be able to go after on this one, but their bullpen is great. They got a great bullpen coach. They got a good pitching coach. They have that kind of stuff, but selling the Giants consistently, I think it's actually like a pretty short number. They basically have flat odds on both sides for it, but a lot of my stuff I'm thinking about is fading those Giants to make the playoffs.
Yep, and with the San Francisco Giants, very interesting team moving forward with them because if Rafael Devers can find it a little bit more, perhaps you're looking at something, but man, it's not panned out for that team. But something that always does pan out for us is you, Adam, and I know you're taking a look at so many great player props, and I want to get your thoughts on just if there's one or two markets for the second half of the season that you might be looking at a little bit more than you did towards the first half.
Yeah, you know what I'm looking at more is pitcher walks and player walks, to be honest. So look, Cal Raleigh. The secret to go pitching Cal Raleigh is pitch to Randy Arozarena, who's behind him, who is a double play machine. I think that he's going to get walked a lot. He's going to get some Aaron Judge treatment, and so he's going to be plus money to get some of those walks, so I would do that. But also pitcher walks. Pitchers start getting tired. Pitchers start losing their focus a little bit the second half of the season. You know, one of the markets that I've really liked playing has been the pitcher walks allowed. Teams start getting a little bit more disciplined in those months. Again, like I said, as pitch counts go up, pitching control takes a beating. So pitcher walks, team walks is another fun market, but those are the ones that I'm eyeing a little bit. The DP market obviously is still a big one because every day is a good day for a double play, but walks is kind of where I'm leaning a lot of my efforts into as the season kicks back in.
A double play a day keeps the doctor away, and so does getting you on this podcast, as I know you are doing such amazing work, Adam, over at a variety of different places, Sports Gambling Podcast Network, Dad's Bet, along with handicrafts, and so much more. And let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, well, first of all, I need to give my obligatory shout out to Colby Marchio, friend of the program, who is like my brother in arms on everything. And so we've talked about a lot of these plays. We're also both aggressively fading the Seattle Mariners. There is something, I meant to say this earlier, but there is stuff about when you win a home run derby, what happens to you and your team. He's the only guy on there. Fade the Mariners. But to find me at Hey Rosenberg, Dad's Bet Baseball, the next couple of weeks, we're going to be on Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. both those days. And on the SGPN MLB Gambling Podcast, I'm on 3 days a week at 10 a.m. These are all Eastern times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you can always go to Handygraphs, which is our analytics site. DM me if you'd like a code. Yeah, Greg, it's always good to come on. We're going to get right back at it.
Yep, we are going to be, and it's going to be amazing to take a look at what we get the second half of the season, and I know that our man Adam doing an incredible job. So big thanks, Adam, for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the Beast and Family Podcast, and coming up next, it is that time podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball, this is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here, lovely Las Vegas, for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Adam Rosenberg, who does such great work over at the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, taking a look at everything that we all know and love of baseball. Every time he joins me, he lends such great insights. He did so once again today. So big thanks to Adam for joining me right here on the Baseball Betting Show. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this Baseball Friday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @GUnit_D1. One change from normal, because we didn't have any sort of a recap, I do have to do one break in between these games. So we're going to do the National League games first, the American League games. I will take a commercial break because I need to get in 2 commercial breaks, and that'll be number 2. And then we'll get you guys the interleague games at the end. That'll keep things all nice, neat, clean, and easy. And how about if we do get things started, by the way, before I go any further, lots of TBD pitchers. There were some teams that did not announce their rotations on Thursday. They're going to be revealing these on Friday. so there's a lot of games that are off the board. There are a lot of games that involve pitchers that we don't know who's going to be going, so if you are listening to this on any sort of a podcast provider or anything like that, I've got my spreadsheet link right there. It's via VSIN, and I update this on the old Twitter /X@G_41. Make sure you check in on that just in case, because there is going to be a lot of change with this. That's just what happens first day coming back from the All-Star break. Things get relatively fortified after the first 2 or 3 days after the break. So let's get things started with 9:51, 9:52 on the card. Washington Nationals play San Diego Padres. Dylan Cease goes for the Pods, and Mike Soroka is on the bump for the Nationals. Nationals do find themselves anywhere between plus 138 to a plus 145, between minus 160 to minus 170. That number on the Pods, and the total is 8.5. The over is between minus 110 to a minus 120. The under is between even and minus 110. If you're looking to lay run half, you're getting right around even money on the San Diego Padres, and I'd be looking at that. I'd be willing to lay up to a minus 110 there. For Dylan Cease, he's done a relatively rough job in terms of just keeping the damage down, but if you look at the actual fielding dependent numbers, if you take a look at the strikeouts per 9, this guy is doing for a lot of positivity. Now, there are just some pitchers that they've got low fielding independence and it never comes around for them, but for Cease, a 4.88 ERA, 3.69 fielding independent. He is giving up the 1.3 home runs and 3.4 walks per 9 innings, but still a little bit north of 11 strikeouts per 9 innings. Came in really slumping prior to the All-Star break with 4+ runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts, but he does face off against a Washington Nationals team that has been much more rough at home rather than on the road with regards to their offensive numbers. Nearly 4 runs per game at home, more like 4.7 runs per game when they've been away from home. Now, James Wood, who partook in the home run derby, has been very good and has been a nice constant for the team. He's been able to supply the team with north of a 375 on base. Right now, supplying the team with 24 home runs. But CJ Abrams has, for some reason, been significantly worse when he's been at home rather than when he's been on the road, and he's currently a little bit banged up. 2 home runs at home this far this season, 10 home runs on the road, hitting a 315 on the road compared to a 258 at home. So I'm not quite sure why that is. And for the Washington Nationals, that's just really been this entire team. They've been able to get a lot of power when they've been away from home, but at home, this is a bunch that they are very much breath of it. James Wood has been a nice constant for you, but among healthy players, the only other player with north of 2 home runs at home this far this season, because Dylan Cruz is on the injury list, is Nathaniel Lowe with 7 home runs. You've had Alex Call give you north of 400 on base at home, but that's been an issue for the team, and for the Washington Nationals, this entire bullpen is an issue at this point, as you've been able to have Kyle Finnegan be able to give you some good production. He, along with Andrew Chafin, have been able to give you a sub-325 ERA. That's at everyone else a 3.45 ERA or worse, and that includes the likes of Zach Brzezinski, Jackson Rutledge, Eduardo Salazar. Lots and lots of guys that are posting up an ERA that's north of a 6. And for the San Diego Padres, this has been a top 10 team with regards to bullpen ERA. As a matter of fact, they're more of a top 5 team. Robert Suarez has been acting up. He's been blowing some saves recently, but then you've got the likes of David Morgan, Jason Adam, Audrey Motohone, who've all been able to give you a sub-2.25 ERA. And then you take a look at the lineup for the San Diego Padres team. It is leaving a little bit of something to be desired, but you've got a trio of guys, Manny Machado, Gavin Sheets, and Fernando Tatis Jr., all 14+ home runs, allowing at least a 265. With Tatis, he's been able to give you 366 on base. You've got a few guys that are moving line, like Jake Cronenworth, only hitting at 238, but he does give you a 354 on base. The catcher spot has been an issue, and then they were banking on Jason Hayward giving you something. They had to DFA him, so that's been a little bit of an issue, but that said, I do think that you get higher scoring affair, especially with Mike Soroka, even though he's giving you north of 8.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's just been giving up a lot of hard contact in general, and for Mike Soroka, ever since the injuries just really ravaged him, it's been not great to say the least. 5.35 ERA, 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. I do think that he's going to struggle once again. 3+ runs allowed in 3 of his last 5 starts, so made my total at 8.8. I like the over and the Padres on the run line. 9:53 and 9:54 on the betting board. It is the Cincinnati Reds, and yes, we're on to Cincinnati. They're on to the road to face off against the New York Mets. Sean Manaea is on the bump for the Metropolitans, and Nick Lodolo is on the bump for the Reds. Reds are between a plus 138 to a plus 142 dog. Minus 165 to minus 170 is that number on the Metropolitans, and total on this game it is 8. The over is minus 115. The under is minus 105. If you're looking to lay run half, you're able to get the Mets at a plus 130, but as long as I can get a plus 147 or better, which I think at the end of the day I should be able to with the Cincinnati Reds, I'm going to be taking a look at them. on the money line. Now, with Nick Lodolo, it's been very much hot and cold with regards to what he's been able to give you because he's right now seeing a dip in his strikeout numbers, about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's giving up 1.3 home runs per 9, but he's also only giving up about 1.9 walks per 9 innings, so that's been pretty rock solid for him. He faces off against a Mets lineup that's been right around about league average in terms of run scoring. They've got a quartet of guys at the top that have all been able to give you at least 16 home runs and have been able to do a very rock solid job of being able to supply the boom, as I know that a lot of people like to poop on Juan Soto, but Juan Soto still give you right around about a 400 on base. You've been able to get a lot of production out of Pete Alonso this year, 77 RBI. He's giving you 376 on base with 21 home runs, so got quite a few guys that have been solid there, but it's really the bottom of the lineup that has been very, very costly. In terms of this team, the entire catcher spot has been less than savory. Starling Marte has been in and out of the lineup all season long. When he's been out there, he's been able to give you about a 350 on base, so that's been rock solid. But like so, Brett Baty, Tyrone Taylor, Mark Vientos, all at 226 or lower, all at 285 on base or lower, all hitting for 9 home runs or fewer. Not great. And for the Mets, ever since June 1st, this team is 27th in the league in terms of bullpen rate with a 4.18. You've had quite a few guys lined on the injured list. No Jose Buto, no Max Kranick. Those are long guys that this team relies upon. Been able to get good production out of some of these shorter guys. Edwin Diaz, sub-2 ERA, he has been amazing in this bullpen. Jose Castillo, when he's gotten opportunities, has been rock solid, but now you're seeing Brandon Waddell start to act up. North of a 3.85 ERA, Richard, a.k.a. Dickie Lovelady, Justin Hagenman, who's been utilized as a starter a little bit, Oscar Brazob, and all these guys posting up north of a 3.95 ERA. And for the Cincinnati Reds, a relatively stable bullpen. It's not great, it's not terrible. Emilio Pagan gives up a few too many home runs, but the ERA is still relatively low with him, as he and Taylor Rogers both posting up a sub-3 ERA. Tony Santin has been able to give you about a 3 or so ERA as well. Lyon Richardson has been pretty rock solid, and for the Reds, this team is in the top 12 in the league in terms of runs per game, as Ellie De La Cruz, 18 bombs, 360 on base, and then you've got Spencer Steer, Matt McClain, all with between 10 and 11 home runs apiece. Steer's hitting at 250. McClain is giving you no on base whatsoever, but you've got Gavin Lux, TJ Friedel, both give you north of 355 on base, and getting back Austin Say's kid should be all about this offense as well. For the Reds, if I can get to a plus 146 or higher, I'll be looking at them on the money line, and then Semi-Total at 8.6, especially with Sean Manaea only making one start this year, gave up 5 hits and 3 1/3 innings against a Royals team that's pretty much dead last in the big leagues in terms of runs per game out there in the American League, so that's a little bit less than tremendous. So this is a spot where I'm taking a look at the over, and in all likelihood, a Reds money line. 955, 956 on the card. It is the St. Louis Cardinals on the road against the Arizona Diamondbacks. We do know that Andre 3000 Palante is going to be getting the start for the St. Louis Cardinals. Right now, it's looking like we should be getting Merrill Kelly for the Arizona Diamondbacks, but that is very much TBD, and most places have this off the board. Initial DraftKings number was minus 121 on the Arizona Diamondbacks, plus 101 with regards to what you're going to be getting out of the St. Louis Cardinals, and then the total on this game, because they are unsure of the starter, that is currently off the board as well, so they didn't make my job very easy here, but with that said, I've got my handicap. As long as you do get Palante going against Merrill Kelly, I would be willing to lay it with the Diamondbacks. I set them at a minus 148. I'd be willing to go up to a minus 147 there, and I mean, it's just really a lack of faith in Andre 3000 Palante, who we do know is going to be going in this game. For Mr. Palante, he's only getting about 6 strikeouts per 9 innings. That's cut down on the walks a little bit. He's giving you about 3 walks per 9 innings, so that hasn't necessarily been too bad, but for his career, the one thing he's been able to do a relatively good job of is keeping the ball in the yard. Now he's giving up a little bit north of a home run per 9 innings. He's backed up by a bullpen that's meh. Like with Ryan Elsley, had a relatively rough start to the season, but now he's been able to pick it up after he had 5 home saves, as a matter of fact, towards the beginning part of the season. But you do have a lot of guys towards the top half of this bullpen that have been able to do a solid job of being able to lock it down. He, Steven Matz, Matt Savanson, Jojo Romero, these guys are all giving you a 3.35 ERA or better. And for the Cardinals, this team is in the upper half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game, despite the fact that they don't have anyone that's giving you north of 12 home runs. Lars Nootbaar, along with Wilson Contreras, both have 12 home runs thus far this season, and Nootbaar and Nolan Arenado both have been giving you in that neighborhood about a 330 on base for Nootbaar, 305 for Nolan Arenado, so both have left a little bit of something to be desired there. Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, both hitting above at 290, and you do have Victor Scott give you 24 stolen bases with a 320 on base, but I don't know how sustainable this offense is, especially with Ivan Rara currently on the injury list. Actually, like Yoel Pozo, who's been hitting north of 300 thus far this season. And for the Arizona Diamondbacks, this is a top 5 team with regards to runs per game. You've got Josh Naylor, who's has been giving you nearly a 295 average, and he's been able to do a rock solid job of giving this team some boom with 11 home runs. And Eugenio Suarez, 31 home runs, 320 on base. This has been absolutely remarkable for them. And Corbin Carroll's back after he was dealing with an injury. Double figure amount of stolen bases, 325 on base, 21 home runs. And then Ketel Marte of the Marte Parte, home run every about 13 at bats, nearly 400 on base. He's been able to supply the team with a 290 average with those 19 bombs. So do like what he's doing there. The mix and match guys like Randall Grichuk have been a little bit suspect, but Pavin Smith is moving the line. Now for the years on the Diamondbacks, bottom 5 team with regards to bullpen ERA. This has been very much less than tremendous, as you got John Curtis with 2 S's and also Shelby Miller give you a sub-3 ERA. That's great, but I mean, they are trying to mix and match with some of these guys like a Justin Martinez, Ryan Thompson, Bryce Jarvis, Jalen Beeks, all these guys posting up north of a 4 ERA, so that has been very suspect to say the least. And this is one of these circumstances where if you do get Merrill Kelly, who's been very good at home for his career, 1.25 points better with his ERA at home rather than on the road. He's been able to give you darn near 9 strikeouts per 9 innings overall this season. I would be setting the Arizona Diamondbacks at a minus 148. Now, if you get like Ryan Nelson, I probably would still be willing to lay, but I'd set that number probably closer to about a minus 125 or so. And then I did set my number with regards to Palante versus Merrill Kelly at a 9.1, so 9 or less. Looking at the over 9.5 higher. The under 957, 958 on the betting board. The Milwaukee Brewers are on the road against the LA Dodgers. Right now, the betting board reads to be determined, going against to be determined, so they didn't do a lot of favors there. This game is off the board, but that said, the CBS projection was Jose Quintana going up against Tyler Glasnow, and I don't see too many matchups unless if you get Freddie Peralta where the Brewers are anything less than a $2 underdog. So there's that aspect of things. Like with this one, I set the Brewers at a plus 232, so I'd be willing to go up to 231 with the Dodgers on the money line. On the run line, I'd be looking at a minus 117 and made a total to where 9 or less, looking at the over 9.5 higher. The under for the Brewers, they've actually been really good on the road with regards to their scoring this far this season. I'm not quite sure why, because American Family Field is one of the most neutral ballparks that you're going to find in all of baseball, but for this Milwaukee Brewers team, 5.4 runs per game, leads the league in terms of runs per game away from home, and I don't quite think that it's sustainable, considering this is not a bunch that hits a bunch of home runs. They're in the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of home runs on a per at-bat basis. Christian Yelich has been able to give you 19 bombs this far this season. Then you've got Rhys Hoskins, 12 home runs, 340 on base. Jackson Chourio, 16 home runs. Nobody else on the roster has north of 7 home runs. Like, you got a lot of guys that are doing a good job moving the line, and a quartet of guys with 14-plus stolen bases. Yelich, Sal Frelick, Jackson Chourio, Bryce Terang. So, I mean, those guys do a solid job. And then have the likes of an Isaac Collins, who's been able to give you 363 on base. And then a cavalcade of guys between about a 339 to a 354 on base. Frelick, Caleb Durbin, William Contreras, Terang, Hoskins, Yelich. These guys have been able to do a nice job moving the line, but this is not an offense I think is quite that sustainable. They go up against a guy in Tyler Glasnow that in his first start back, he had 5 rock-solid innings against this very Milwaukee Brewers team, so there's going to be a little bit of familiarity there. Both of these teams have been a little bit suspect with their bullpens, though, and if you do indeed get Jose Quintana, very much a pitch-to-contact guy that, I mean, overall this season has a 3.20 ERA. The only pennant is well north of a 4, though, as he has been quite lucky to give up only really solo home runs when he has given up the deep ball thus far this season, 0.9 home runs per 9 innings, but you do have the likes of a Aaron Ashby, who's been rock solid in the bullpen, Trevor McGill, Nick Mears, all be able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've had Grant Anderson step up a little bit more for the team as well. And for the LA Dodgers, getting back Michael Kopech does help out this bullpen, but you've had Tanner Scott just be a relative disaster for his team. Kirby Yates is not been what they were hoping for as well. Jack Dreher has actually been a relatively good long guy, but I mean, the feature of this LA Dodgers team is the fact that this team is a Death Star with regards to their lineup. They are in the top 3 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game. Struggled a little bit towards the back half of the first half, but Shohei Ohtani, 32 home runs, 380 on base. We all know what he's going to give you. Mookie Betts has been a little bit down for his standards, but Teoscar Hernandez, Andy Paz, these two guys are combining for about 31 home runs. Max Muncy being out of the fold has hurt this team, but Will Smith is getting jiggy with that 425 on base. That Kike Hernandez really not giving you too much, but I mean, even when Hyun Kim has been out there, Kim has been able to give you nearly a 380 on base. So do think that this is going to be a little bit of a higher scoring affair. If you do get Quintana versus Glasnow, minus 117 is what I'd be willing to lay on that Dodgers run line, plus 233 or more. Looking at the Brew Crew, and then 9 or less in the on the over, 9.5 or higher, the under. 959, 960 on the betting board. It is the Athletics on the road against the Cleveland Guardians, as JP Sears is on the bump for the the Athletics, Slade Cecconi is on the bump for Cleveland. Cleveland is between minus 135 to minus 144, between plus 118 to plus 127 as that number on the Athletics. 8.5 is the total. Over and under both at minus 105 to minus 115, and I set the Guardians at a minus 156. I'm going to be willing to lay it. For Cecconi, he's done a better job of being able to reduce on the deep balls thus far this season. It's lying in that neighborhood about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. So that's been a little bit suspect for this team. But you know what, with Cecconi, he's been able to give you some good swing and miss. He's up to in the neighborhood about 8.5 to 9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Down below 3 walks per 9 innings as well. 3.44 ERA, the 4.26 fielding dependent. That's a little bit because of the deep ball, but 3 home runs allowed in his last 5 starts, 3 runs allowed in each out of his last 5 starts as well. That's pretty rock solid. And for JP Sears, this guy just gives up bomb after bomb. For Sears, he really doesn't give up a lot of walks, which is a good thing. He gives up 2.2 walks per 9 innings, but 1.8 home runs per 9 innings, 4.79 ERA, 4.88 fielding dependent, much like a lot of these Sacramento A's pitchers when he's been at home. It's been a man-mitigated disaster for him, to say the least, but I mean, just giving up way too much of the home run ball. But I will say, 5+ strikeouts in 3 of his last 4 starts, starting to come around there. He does go up against a Cleveland Guardians lineup that is in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game, as it's a very top-heavy lineup. You've had Kyle Manzardo give you 15 home runs, but he is among so many guys on this roster that's hitting a 220 or lower. It's he, Lane Thomas, Brian Rocchio, Daniel Schneemann, Bo Naylor, Will Wilson, David Fry, John Kenzie Noel, Austin Hedges, all hitting a 220 or lower. Carlos Santana, he's providing about a 330 on base with 11 home runs. And then Stephen Kwan is hitting a 285, but that's really not much in terms of offense. And for the Guardians, last year they were number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. This year they're about league average. Getting back Eric Sobrowski helps. He and Nick Enright have been able to give you a sub-2 ERA. And then Jacob Junis is starting to come along for the ride. He and Hunter Gaddis between a 3.6 to a 3.7 ERA, but Tim Barron has been relatively rough thus far this season. Paul Sewald has been nothing to write home about. Emmanuel Clase, he's starting to round into form, but he's clearly not the guy that he was a season ago. And then for the Athletics, this team is right there at the bottom of the big leagues in terms of their bullpen ERA. Actually been able to get a little bit of something out of Michael Kelly along Sean Newcomb. These are the lone 2 guys on the roster with a sub-3.45 ERA. And then you've got the likes of Hogan Harris, even Mason Miller, JT Ginn and Juice, Grant Holman, all give you north of 4 ERA. And for this Athletics team, it's right around about league average in terms of runs per game. Brent Rooker, 20 bombs with a 355 on base is solid. Tyler Soderstrom, after he had just a big giant lull, after a hot first month of the season, he's starting to pick it up. He and Nick Kurtz have combined 35 home runs. And for Kurtz, he's giving you a home run every about 12 or so at bats. He has been solid. Shea Langoliers, Shea has banged for 12 home runs this season, but 285 on base. Jacob Olsen continues to hit for a 330, but I do think that in the end, you get a little bit of better pitching out of the Guardians, and I do think that they get the job done. So I tell it at 8.3, so I'm liking the under, and I am liking the Cleveland Guardians. I'm going to be willing to take the money line just to be safe on them. 961, 962 on the card. The Baltimore Orioles are on the road against the Tampa Bay Rays. Taj Junkel, Milton Bradley goes for the Rays, and it is Charlie Morton on the bump for Baltimore. 9 is the total. Over and under both at minus 110, minus 116 to minus 123. That number on the Rays between minus 101 to a plus 107 is that number on Baltimore, and I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Rays. I did set them at a minus 141 with Mr. Taj Bradley. He has been way down with his swing and miss stuff. I mean, first 2 years at the big league level, he was getting north of 10 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's down below 8 strikeouts per 9 innings this season. Still is having a little bit of a tough time giving up the deep ball, but it's been a skoja bit better. A home run and 3.4 walks allowed per 9 innings, 4.60 ERA. More around about a 440 fielding dependent, so he has been able to do a little bit of a better job there. And for Charlie Morton, 3 runs allowed or fewer in each out of his last 5 starts. He also has been, rough overall this season with north of a 5 ERA. He is giving up north of 4 walks per 9 innings. That is backed up by a bullpen that is number 25 of the big leagues with regards to their bullpen ERA. You've had a few guys be able to step up for the team, but one of those guys in Brian Baker is no longer with the team, so it's a little bit rough for them. Felix Bautista has been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, so he's been able to do a pretty spectacular job there. Keegan Aiken has been a little bit up and down as a long guy for this team, and then you've been having guys like Grant Wolfram, Colin Selby, Andrew Kittredge, these guys, Yennier Cano, giving you north of a 360 ERA, so that's been a little bit of an issue for you. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, if you look overall for the season, it's been pretty much a league average bullpen, but that said, you've got top guys that have been able to do a nice job coming in there, being consistent, like Pete Fairbanks, Manuel Rodriguez, Eric Orzag, Eric Clevenger. These are all guys that have been able to give you a sub 280 ERA. And for the Tampa Bay Rays, this is a team that ranks number 9 in the big leagues in terms of runs per game. Brandon Lowe, Jr. Caminero, a combined 42 home runs as far this season. In the case of Lowe, hitting at 272. Yandy Diaz over the last 2 months, hitting north of 325. Overall for the season, 14 home runs. You've had Jose Calabreo move the line with 31 stolen bases, and you have Chandler Simpson hitting above a 300. He's been able to give you 26 stolen bases. If you look at the Orioles overall for the season, they do rank in the bottom 10 in the big leagues with regards to their overall runs per game, but they're starting to pick it up. Cedric Malins has been your top power hitter, 13 home runs, so you need to get a little bit more there, but Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, these two guys have been able to give you a combined 23 home runs. They're both hitting above a 259. Ramon Laureano, 11 bombs with about a 350 on base. Jordan Westberg, Colton Cowser being on the injured list for a while has been an issue, but Westberg a home run every about 17 or so at bats, hitting above 250. I think that the Orioles are starting to find a little bit more on offense, but still feel very shaky about that bullpen. And I do have some question marks with Charlie Morton, even though he was a little bit better going into the All-Star break. So here at the 9, I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the over. And with the Rays, set them at a minus 141. I'm trusting in them on the money line. 963, 964 on the betting board. The Detroit Tigers are on the road against the Texas Rangers. Patrick Corbin is on the bump for the Rangers, and Reese Olson goes for Detroit. Detroit is between a minus 115 to a minus 125 favorite. Between even money to plus 105 is that number on Texas. Texas is back to having a too high of a total. 8.5 is the total. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. And I did set my total here at a 8.2, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the under. For Reese Olson has been very rock solid all throughout the season for this Detroit Tigers team. Now, that is when he's been healthy, because over the last few years he has been dealing with quite a few injuries. But for Reese Olson, what I like about him most is the way that he's able to keep the ball in the yard. 2.95 ERA through his 11 starts this far this season. He has only allowed 3 home runs in 58 innings. Does give you about 8.5 strikeouts at 3.4 walks per 9 innings. Would like to see the walks be tamed down just a little bit, but since he came off the injured list over his last 2 starts, he's given up a combined 3 runs in 9 1/3 innings, so pretty steady Eddie and pretty rock solid there. And then for Patrick Corbin, it's been a much better season for him this year rather than last year, and for Corbin down to about a 4.15 ERA. Still do have my trepidations and question marks with him. He's giving up about 1.4 home runs per 9 innings, not a ton of swing and miss with about 7.1 strikeouts per 9 innings. There's a lot of 3 runs or fewer in each out of his last 3 starts, but we're starting to see things creep up on him a little bit, and he does have to face off against a Detroit Tigers team that does rank in the top 10 in the big leagues with regards to their runs per game. Riley Green has been amazing, along with Spencer Torkelson at being able to go yard, combined 45 home runs thus far this season. Now, if you look at ballpark factors specifically this year, Texas has been one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all of baseball, but this is a team that also does a great job in terms of moving lines, so you don't necessarily need that home run power. Javi Baez, Gleyber Torres, Zach McKinstry, allowing at least a 275 for this unit, with Torres up to about a 387 on base. You've had Gary Carpenter give you 16 home runs, him being on the injured list has hurt the team a little bit, but getting back Wencio Perez, who's been able to hit north of 260, that's been rock solid. And for the Tigers, this team is right around about league average with regards to that bullpen ERA, a tad bit better than that, but I do believe that they're even better with having so many guys they're able to rely upon for a sub 335 ERA. Brandon Herter, Brandon Hennefy, Will Vest, throw in there even someone like a little bit of a younger gun like a Chase Lee, who's up to now about a 370 ERA, but overall these guys have been able to do a solid job holding down the fort. And Tommy Kahnle was a little bit rough towards the back half of the first half of the season. I think that he's got to pick it up. And for Texas, if you look since June 1st, they've actually been number 1 in terms of their bullpen ERA. A lot of guys have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. Jacob Latz, a long guy, is at exactly a 3 ERA. And then you've got the likes of Hobie Milner, Robert Garcia, Cole Winn holding down the fort for the team. But I mean, the offense has been rough. Now, I will say this for the Texas Rangers. Since the beginning of the month of July, they are averaging darn near 6.5 runs per contest. So they have really picked it up there. Marcus Semien and Adolis Garcia are both now giving you a double-figure amount of bombs. And I mean, these guys over the last 3 days, they've been hitting much better. You've got Josh Smith overall for the season hitting at 277. Wyatt Langford, 15 bombs, about a 325 on base. And Corey Seager, he was miserable coming off the injured list, but you look at what he's been able to do over the last 30 or so days, and it's been much better. Last 30 days, he's back up to a 429 on base. He's been able to give you 7 home runs in the last few games, so you do like to see that. I do still think, though, that Reese Olson is going to be able to go out there, get a good start, and get the job done. I did set the Tigers at a minus 137, like them on the money line. Here at an 8.5, I'm in on the under semi-total at an 8.2. This will be the last game before we hit a break, and the interleague games, 965, 966 on the card. It is the Houston Astros. They are on the road against the Seattle Mariners. Luis Castillo goes for the M's. Brandon Walter is on the bump for the Astros, and Astros are finding themselves as a very slim underdog, anywhere between minus 120 to a minus 135. Between even money and plus 110 is that number on Houston. right now there's no total up there because for Seattle, it's a little bit TBD as to whether or not it is indeed going to be Luis Castillo. We are going off of the old CBS projection as of right now, but if you indeed get Luis Castillo going against Brandon Walter, I actually did set the Seattle Mariners at a minus 116. If we get it up to about a plus 115 or so, I would be willing to take a shot on the Houston Astros on the money line. It is indeed looking like we're going to get Luis Castillo. So in all likelihood, I probably would be willing to take a shot on the Astros in some form or capacity, but that's a little bit TBD. And I'm right now seeing that initial total at a 7.5. I would be taking a look at the over. So my total at 7.6 says Luis Castillo just has not been the same pitcher that he has been in past years. For Luis Castillo, strikeout numbers are way in that down from this season, as he's got a 3.41 ERA, which is not bad, and he's limited the deep ball, giving up 1 home run per 9 innings, but 7.7 strikeouts per 9 innings, a far cry from where he's been in past years. 383 fielding dependent. Entered in the All-Star break, pitching relatively well. 3 runs or fewer allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. And for Brandon Walter, the command has really been there for him. He has been giving up a little bit too much hard contact, though, as for Walter, about 1.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings. 40 and a third innings, and he's only allowed 2 walks. So credit to him. He's been getting about 9 strikeouts for 9 innings. 398 ERA, 404 fielding dependent. Got lit up in a few starts on the road prior to the All-Star break, but now he gets a pitch out there in Seattle, one of the most pitcher-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. That's reflected in the fact that Seattle averages fewer runs per game at home rather than on the road, even though you've got big dumper Cal Raleigh, who wins the home run derby. He is on pace for an American League record for home runs in a season. He's got 38 this far this season. And Randy Arozarena, 357 on base, 17 home runs, really picked it up towards the back half of the first half of the season. Ore Polanco, Julio Rodriguez, combined 29 home runs, both in between about a 250 to 260. So, like what these guys are able to bring to the table. And then Donovan Solano has been moving line, hitting about a 250 as well. And for the Seattle Mariners, the top-end bullpen pieces have been so good for this team, as you've got the likes of an Edward Bazardo, Matt Brash, Andres Munoz, even Juan Burgos in a small sample size. These guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA, so I like what I'm seeing there. And then when you've got a guy like a Munoz who's able to close out games, that is just such a great weapon in general. And then you've got a bunch on the other side in the Houston Astros who have been a top 8 team with regards to bullpen ERAs. You've got the Bryants, Brian King, Brian Abreu, Steven Oker, throw in there Josh Hader, the closer. List goes on and on of guys who've been able to give you a sub-325 ERA. And for the Astros, they, over last month, have been able to find their swagger on offense. Isaac Paredes, Jose Altuve, combined 36 home runs this season. For Paredes, he's up to about a 357 on base, and Jose Altuve is back up to hitting above a 275. Jeremy Pena being on the injured list with a 378 on base has been hurting the team, and you could use more on base out of Yunior Diaz, Christian Walker. Both of these guys a sub 290 on base, but both of these guys have combined 25 home runs. Victor Carantini can get 255 along with Mauricio Dubon, and for Carantini, 10 plus home runs, and then Cam Smith, move line, give you a 350 on base, like what he's able to bring to the table. So it's an interesting circumstance. Plus 116 or higher, I'm going to be looking at the Astros on the money line. Then we can get a 7.5 or less. I'll be in on the over, and we will break in at the interleague games on the flip side right here on the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've went through the National League games and the American League games for today. Now let's hit these interleague games as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
967, 968 on the card. It is the Boston Red Sox on the road against the Chicago Cubs. Colin Ray says Zip Ray to another start, and Lucas Giolito goes for Boston. Boston is anywhere between plus 104 to plus 113, anywhere between minus 118 to minus 126. That number on Chicago, 8.5 is the total. The under is minus 115, and the over is minus 105. And if you're taking a look at the wind situation that we're going to be having out there in the lovely city of Chicago, looks like you're going to have a lot of directional winds, blowing in a little bit, but it's not going to be overly bad. But I did, regardless, semi-total at 7.9. I'm going to be looking at this total to the under. These are two rock-solid bullpens that I think are going to go out there and perform relatively well. For the Cubs, I was expecting a little bit more regression with that bullpen ERA, but I mean, the Red Sox, number 5 in terms of bullpen ERA with a 3.44 ERA. Cubs, number 6 with a 3.54 ERA overall for the season. And I've had both of these teams have a lot of guys come from out of absolutely nowhere whatsoever and be able to give these teams some good innings. Greg Weissert has been able to give you sub 3.5 ERA for Boston. Aroldis Chapman has been an ageless wonder for this team. A sub 175 ERA. His strikeout numbers have been absolutely supreme for this unit. You've got Justin Wilson, who's been able to give you a sub 3 ERA as well. So, things have been very good for them. And then on the flip side for the Chicago Cubs, just a lot of unsung guys that you would not think would be great bullpen pieces that have really been able to step up for this team. Ryan Brazier, Drew Pomeranz, Daniel Palencia, Chris Flexen, who might be utilized a little bit more as a starter moving forward, Caleb Thielbar. All these guys, a sub 230 ERA now. For the Cubs, this team has really been stinging the ball all season long. Seiya Suzuki, Pete Armstrong, a combined 50 home runs between the two of them, both hitting in that neighborhood about a 265. You've had Kyle Tucker give you a 385 on base for 17 bombs. Michael Bush, 19 home runs, 375 on base. Carson Kelly, 376 on base, 12 home runs. Even someone that doesn't give you a lot of power, Nico Horner, has been able to about a 280 as well. So, they've been able to do an amazing job there. Flip side, you've got yourself a unit that has been able to do a nice job of just holding it down and has been able to do a nice job in terms of moving on from Rafael Devers and the Red Sox with Weiler Abreu wiling out, being able to supply 18 home runs. He's been hitting for about a 255. Jaron Duran has had a little bit of a down season, but Trevor Story, along with Abreu, they're all hitting between about a 255 to 260, and then with Story, 15 home runs, really picked it up prior to the All-Star break. Ceddanne Rafael has been able to about a 270 with 14 home runs, and then the mix and match guys like Abraham Toro, Rami Gonzalez, Rob Revsnyder, these guys hitting north of 270 gives the team some stability, and you're also getting back Masataka Yoshida to be able to give you a bit more with regards to this lineup as well. So it's an interesting circumstance because with Colin Ray, he hasn't been great, he has been awful, and Lucas Giolito actually had a really good back half of the first half for Giolito overall for the season, 3.36 ERA. Strikeout numbers have not been great. He's only been getting about 8 strikeouts per 9 innings, but he's keeping the hard contact down. He's giving up only about 1 home run per 9 innings, and he's limited the walks to about 2.6 walks per 9 innings. He's allowed a combined 3 earned runs over the course of his last 5 starts. Do think that we see a little bit of regression there, and for Mr. Colin Ray, 3.91 ERA compared to a 4.78 fielding dependent. The 1.6 home runs per 9 innings and only 6.4 strikeouts per 9 is a concern, but 2 runs or fewer allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. So this is one of those circumstances where I set my money line at a minus 133 on the Cubs, willing to trust in them, and I did make my total 7.9 secure at the 8.5. I like the under. 969, 970 on the card. The Chicago White Sox, and they're facing off against the Pittsburgh Pirates. As for the White Sox, it is Jonathan Cannon who gets a start, and Bailey Falter hopes to not live up to his name for the Pirates. Pirates are between minus 153 to minus 164 favorites, between plus 134 to plus 142. That number on the White Sox, 8.5 is the total. Over and under anywhere between minus 105 to a minus 115. And with Falter and the Buccos, I did set them at a minus 165. If you're looking to lay run half with them, you're going to be fine that about a plus 128 to a plus 130, and anything of a plus 118 or higher. I was willing to take a shot on the Pittsburgh Pirates run line. For Bailey Falter, he's actually been really good recently. For Bailey Falter, he has not been living up to that name very often. Now, he is only getting about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. Still does post up about 3 walks per 9, so you could use a little bit more something out of him, but still, he's been able to do a good job in terms of just give you good, consistent innings, as he has been giving up 3 runs or fewer in now 12 out of his last 14 starts. And then for Jonathan Cannon, it has been a case where he's been okay, 4.44 ERA, 2 runs or fewer allowed in 3 straight starts, but you just have a pair of offenses that have been anemic for the Chicago White Sox, 3.1 runs per game away from home. That is a bottom 3 mark in the big leagues, as you've had Andrew Benintendi, Miguel Vargas both give you a double-figure amount of homers, and really, nobody else has been giving you too much of anything whatsoever for the Chicago White Sox team. You do have a few guys like a Lennon Sosa is hitting for a 270, moving the line a little bit. Edgar Quiero, the backup catcher, has been relatively okay for this bunch, but man, it has been rough with likes of Luis Robert and company just hitting for average, as you've got Robert, Michael A. Taylor, Joshua Palacios, Vinny Capra, Josh Rojas, all in at 218 or lower for this unit. And then you've got a bullpen that does rank at the bottom 10 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. Now you've got Dan Altavilla, who's been very good in this bullpen. Mike Vasil should be back the bullpen. Steven Wilson, I'll give you a sub 250 ERA, but then you've got the north of 4 guys, as you've got that out of Grant Taylor, Jordan Leisure, Brandon Isert. So these guys have been very suspect, to say the least. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, ever since a relatively shaky start to the season, some of these guys have picked it up. David Benner, a sub 3.5 ERA. You've been able to get some good production out of the former Dodgers and Dennis Santana, along with Caleb Ferguson. They've been able to give you a sub 3.5 ERA as well. It's been hit or miss with regards to Chase Sugar, but what is much more hit or miss for this Pittsburgh Pirates team is the fact that its offense is right now in the bottom 2 in the big leagues with regards to runs per game. O'Neal Cruz, Brian Reynolds, and also Andrew McCutchen, lone 3 guys on the roster with north of 4 home runs as far as this season. And even though Cruz has 16 home runs, which is pretty rock solid, He's among a bunch of guys that are currently hitting a 221 or lower. He, Alexander Canario, Henry Davis, throwing there Jared Trollo. All these guys have just been unmitigated disasters. And even these guys are aiming for a little bit better average, like Brian Hayes, 284 on base with 2 home runs. That's just not going to cut it. I do think that this is going to be a low-scoring slug, so I did set my total at 7.8. I like the under, but even with that, I'm going to be willing to trust in the Pittsburgh Pirates on the run line. 971, 972 on the card. The Philadelphia Phillies play host to the LA Angels as Jesus Luzardo is on the bump for the Phils, and it's all to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the Halos. This is a game that is presently off the board. When I was looking initially at the projections on CBS Sports, I was seeing that it was supposed to be Jose Soriano, and if you do indeed get Jose Soriano, I will be willing to take a plus 170 shot on the money line with the LA Angels, as he has actually been really, really good on the road thus far this season. And if you're looking at some of the other projections out there right now, they're lining it up as just pretty much a big giant mystery pitcher. But that said, this has been a Angels team that has been very underrated all season long, and for Jesus Luzardo, I do think that he's going to find it a little bit more with regards to his pitching. Right now, we're seeing that total of an 8.5. If you do indeed get Soriano going against the Phillies, I would be willing to take a shot on the under. As for Jesus Luzardo, his fielding independent and his actual ERA just very, very much warped for Luzardo. 4.14 ERA. He had that 2-start stretch against the Brewers, and I think it was the A's, if I'm not mistaken, where he gave up a combined 20 runs. It was actually the Blue Jays, but 268 fielding independent, 10.5 strikeouts, and 0.6 walks allowed per 9 innings, so he has been steady there. And going into the All-Star break, he had given up 2 runs or fewer in 3 out of his last 4 starts, so he was able to stabilize things. And if you do get Jose Soriano north of 50 innings pitched on the road this far this season, you have to allow home run, sub 350 ERA. This is an Angels lineup that is very much all or nothing this far this season. As for the Los Angeles Angels, you've got a lot of guys that are not getting on base, but you've got a lot of guys hitting bombs, like Taylor Ward, 224 average, 21 home runs. Joe Adell, he has actually been able to do a good job of moving the line, 19 home runs, 320 on base. Zach Neto, 325 on base, 15 home runs. Logan O'Hoppe, very O'Hoppe about the 17 home runs, not so O'Hoppe about the 267 on base. Jorge Soler, miserable year, 288 on base. You expect a little bit more than 10 home runs out of him. Even Mike Trout, 17 home runs, but hitting just a 238. So that's been a little bit of an issue. Additionally, you've got 2 bullpens that are not so great. Both of these teams in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA, with Hunter Strickland hitting the injured list for the LA Angels. That means that you pretty much have one guy that's been able to be relatively consistent and give you a sub 325 ERA for this team, and that would be Mr. Sam Bachman. And then that's about it, as you've had so many of these guys like Hector Neris, Connor Brogdon, Victor Medeiros, Reed Detmer, so many guys with a north of 4 ERA. Kenley Jansen, Brockton Rolberg have been a little bit better recently, but still not amazing. And outside of Ryan Kerkering for the Philadelphia Phillies, pretty much everyone in this bullpen is north of 3 ERA as well. Recognize that Tanner Banks has been a little bit better for this unit, but it was so bad for Carlos Hernandez that they had to DFA him. It's very clear that Jordan Romano is not cut out for this bullpen, as he and Joe Ross are posting up north of a 5 ERA. But for the Philadelphia Phillies, this has been a team that has been producing north of 5 runs per game at home, with Kyle Schwarber being the catalyst for it, 30 home runs, north of 375 on base, and then a lot of guys between 10 and 12 home runs. You've got that at Max Kepler, Bryce Harper, Trey Turner down for what? Nick Castellanos, and for Mr. Turner, hitting about a 290 for this team. Harper's up to a 375 on base. Alec Boehm not hitting for a ton of power, but hitting at 280 as well. So interesting circumstance. I did set the Angels money line at a plus 169. So if I could get in on a plus 175 like I'm seeing right now, looking there and looking at the under. 973, 974 on the betting board. It is the Toronto Blue Jays going up against the San Francisco Giants, as Justin Verlander goes for the Gigantes, and you've got Chris Bassett taking a line and sinker for Toronto. Toronto a minus 125 to a minus 135 favorite, and between plus 108 to a plus 115 is that number on San Francisco. 8.5 is the total. Over is minus 115, and the under is minus 105. And for Bassett and company, I set the Blue Jays at a minus 147. Justin Verlander has yet to pick up a win this far this season, and it just looks very clear that he is washed. He still is able to give you a little bit of swing and miss, but still, 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. You expect a little bit more from Verlander. 470 ERA, 416 fielding independent. Hasn't been a total disaster. 3 runs or fewer allowed in 3 of his last 4 starts, and in terms of earned runs, 4 out of his last 5. So I do think that he'll still be able to give you some solid innings, but at the same time, you've got a guy in Chris Bassett who I think that he's just still in better form as of right now. I recognize that the 4.12 ERA is not necessarily sterling, and to close out the first half of the season, it was all sorts of up and down for Bassett. For Bassett, in his last 5 starts, he gave up 3+ runs in 2 of them, including a 9 spot to the Boston Red Sox. The other 3, he gave up 0-1 runs. So that was interesting. But 378 fielding dependent, 8.7 strikeouts, so 1.1 home runs allowed per 9 innings. And this has been a Blue Jays bullpen that I'm not going to say that it's been supreme, but it's been solid. They're 8th in the league in terms of bullpen ERA. Uriel Rodriguez, nice long guy, is able to give you a sub-3 ERA. You've been able to get some relatively good production out of Braden Fisher along with Brandon Little. These guys have been able to give you a sub-3 ERA as well. And then with regards to this Blue Jays lineup, it's been one that has been hitting so much better when they've been at home rather than away from home. For the Toronto Blue Jays, they are averaging 5.3 runs per game at home. That is number 2 in the American League, 3.85 runs per game away from home. So that's a big giant divide. And for the Blue Jays, still in the bottom half of the big leagues with regards to their overall home runs on a per at-bat basis, but they've been picking up the power a little bit. With George Springer being the main man for doing this, he's been able to give the team 16 bombs. He's right now supplying the team with north of a 360 on base. You've got Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Edison Barger, all between 12 and 13 home runs thus far this season. Guerrero's able to give you a 385 on base. You've got a guy, Nathaniel Lukes, who's able to give you a 370 on base. And then additionally, you've been able to have Ernie Clement do a nice job, hitting for about a 290 as well, along with don't call his name, Alejandro Kirk, hitting darn near 300 as well. Flip side, you've got yourself a bunch that has been very much up and down with regards to the San Francisco Giants squad. As for the Giants, ever since they picked up Rafael Devers, he just hasn't necessarily given you a whole heck of a lot. For Devers, he's hitting a 202 with 2 home runs since he joined the team, so that has not been what they were looking for. And Willie Adames, 12 home runs. He looked a little bit better going into the All-Star break, but still not a good return on investment either. Jung-Ho Lee has been sinking a little bit as Mike Yastrzemski, Wilmer Flores, Matt Chapman, only between about a 237 to a 250. Eloy Ramos has been your best constant for this team. 14 home runs. He's been able to give you about a 340 on base as well. So I do think that this is an interesting Giants team, especially with the fact that they are currently number 1 in the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA. You've had so many guys be able to go out there and get the job done for this team, as you've had Camilo Duvall, Eric Miller, Taylor Rogers, Randy Rodriguez, all post up a sub-3 ERA. Spencer Bivens has been a relatively good long guy, though he's up to a 372 ERA as well. But do you think that for the Blue Jays, they do have the upper hand here? Set my line at a minus 147. Willing to back that Blue Jays money line in. I'm in on the over. Set my total at 80.6. 975, 976 on the card. The Miami Marlins, they play host to the Kansas City Royals. It is one Sunday. Alcantara is going to be on the bump for the Marlins, and right now it reads to be determined for the Royals, so this game is off the board. Right now the projections are Seth Lugo, and if you do get Seth Lugo, I did set the Royals at a minus 126, and there's a lot of Royals pitchers. Michael Wacha, Chris with K. Bubich at IB1 back in this spot, probably even Noah Cameron as well. So, unless something unforeseen happens, I do foresee myself being on the Royals money line, even with Lugo giving you less than 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's been pretty solid in terms of controlling the walks. Does give up a little bit too much of the deep ball, but for this Miami Marlins lineup, it has been a disaster class in terms of giving you a whole heck of a lot of power. Augustin Ramirez and Kyle Stowers have been very good at terms of being able to supply power, with Stowers 370 on base, 19 home runs. Augustin Ramirez, only about a 289 on base, but it's up to 14 home runs. One other player on the roster has north of 7 home runs. That would be Otto Lopez, who's been hitting about a 250, and got plenty of guys that have done a nice job in terms of getting on base. As you've had Xavier Edwards be able to hit for about a 290. Dane Myers is hitting about a 280. You've had Liam Hicks be able to supply about a 367 on base as well. So these guys have been pretty rock solid for you. And then you take a look at what you're able to get in terms of this bullpen for the Miami Marlins. It's been better recently. Ronnie Enriquez, Lake Picard, been able to give you sub 350 ERA. You've had relatively good production recently out of Anthony Bender as well. He's up to about a 2 or so ERA along Cade Gibson. So things are looking better there. Though you always have to hold your breath when you've got the likes of Tyler Phillips, along with also Calvin Fauché out there in this game as well. And then for Sandy Alcantara, man, it just has not gotten right from. I will say the fielding independent is more than a point at better than the ERA, but 7 strikeouts per 9 innings, about 3.7 walks per 9. He's only giving up about 1.2 home runs per 9 innings, but he's just not fooling anyone. Coming off of major surgery, he has been awful. 7.22 ERA this far this season. Then for this Kansas City Royals team, it has been one that has been dead last in the American League in terms of runs per game, as the young guys just are not stepping up for this team. John Rave, Jack Caglione, Nick Lofton, all hitting right around a 200 or lower for this unit that is just not great. You've got guys that are able to move the line a little bit. Drew Waters, Kyle Isbell, Salvador Perez, only between about a 242, 245. Perez is now up to 13 home runs. Did surge towards the All-Star break. And then Vinny Pasquantino, 15 home runs, 330 on base is solid. Bobby Witt Jr., 14 home runs, 345 on base. You'll take that. And Miguel Garcia is hitting darn near 300 as well. But Jonathan India hasn't necessarily been able to give you too much. The saving grace for this Royals team has been the bullpen. They've been a top 10 team with regards to their bullpen ERAs. You've got Lucas Ursadge, Carlos Estevez, a nice 1-2 combo, give you a sub 250 ERA. Daniel Lynch did land on the injured list, but Steven Cruz is sub 275 ERA. John Schreiber is able to come in and hold down the fort. So pretty much any Royal starter, I'd be willing to like to a minus 125 on that money line. And then I did semi total here at an 8.4. So seeing the 8, I would be willing to take a shot on the over. 977, 978 on the board. It is the New York Yankees on the road against the Atlanta Braves. We know that it's going to be Spencer Strider going for the Bravos. It looks like it should be Max Fried going for the Yankees, and that's reflected in the initial DraftKings number. No total up on this game, but minus 121 on the Yankees, plus 101 with regards to the Atlanta Braves. And then if you take a look at that initial FanDuel opener, minus 112 on the Yankees, minus 104 with the Braves. Strider will probably be a favorite against darn near any other New York Yankees starter, but if you do indeed get Max Fried like it's looking like we should be getting, I would be willing to lay the Yankees money line. I would be willing to go up to a minus 128 there. For Max Fried, I do recognize that it was less than savory from going into the All-Star break, 3+ runs allowed in 4 out of his last 5 starts, but still has been able to do a nice job of just controlling the things he can control. 0.7 home runs, 2 walks per 9 innings. Never has been a high strikeout guy, about 8.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, but overall has done a nice job holding down the fort, and this is a guy that I think is going to be able to go out there and shut down an Atlanta Braves team that has just been disappointing this year. Like for the Atlanta Braves, they're right now behind the Miami Marlins in terms of standings, and with this Braves lineup, they're in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of runs per game. That's even with Ronald Acuna Jr. Give you a 435 on base. He's getting a home run every about 13 or so at bats. Matt Olson, he had that long north of 30 on base streak games, 17 home runs, 360 on base. Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna combined 27 home runs. You've got Ozuna giving you about a 366 on base as well. So you've got a lot of providers for this team, and you're getting Jurickson Profar back after he was suspended for so long. And for the Braves, this has been a pretty solid bullpen. They've been a top 12 team with regards to bullpen ERA. Getting back Desval Hernandez is big, as he, Dylan Lee, and then throw in there Pierce Johnson have been able to give you a sub 3 ERA. And Yel De Los Santos has been a little bit hit or miss, along with the Dodd father, Dylan Dodd, but really the issue for this team has been Raciel Iglesias, north of a 4.40 ERA over there. But still, with Spencer Strider, after a rough first few starts of the season, his swing and miss stuff is very clearly back. For Mr. Spencer Strider, he actually went 0-5 in his first 5 starts, but now he's up to about 11 strikeouts per 9 innings, 3.94 ERA. He has been giving up about 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. The walks have been a little bit high. He's up north of 3 walks per 9 innings, but I do look at him and a guy that I think overall is going to be able to go out there, hold down the fort. I did set a total of a 7.6, so if we get a 7.5 or less, going to be on the over, 8 or higher to the under. And if we do get Max Fried, I'm going to be willing to lay it with the Yankees, especially with the Yankees lineup that they entered in the All-Star break relatively odd. Last 2 games were less than savory, but they were able to lug out 5+ runs in 11 out of their last 13 games. Aaron Judge, well, he's Aaron Judge, 35 home runs, 460 on base. He's been amazing. And then you got Cody Bellinger, Austin Wells, Ben Rice, Jazz Chisholm, along with Trent Grisham, all between 14 and 17 home runs thus far this season. Grisham has been able to give about a 350 on base, along with Chisholm. You've had Ben Rice really start to slump along with Austin Wells in terms of not being able to move the line, but Yasan Dominguez, he's giving you a lot of stolen bags. He's been able to give you about a 345 on base, and you need a bit more to Paul Goldschmidt, but we'll be willing to take the Yankees on the money line to go along with an 8 or higher to the under, and then wrap things up with 979, 980 on the card. It is the Colorado Rockies. They're going to be playing us to the Minnesota Twins, as it is Kyle Freeland who's going to be on the bump for the Rockies. Right now, Reed's old to be determined who's going to be on the bump for the Minnesota Twins, so this is a game that's presently off the board. I was lining this up as if it was going to be Chris Paddock who was going to be getting the start, and right now that's what I'm seeing on FanDuel. And if you're looking at the run line price of the Twins, that's right around about minus 110 to a minus 115. I'm willing to go up to a minus 148 with regards to this Twins run line. This is just a Colorado Rockies team that is sad and pathetic. For Kyle Freeland, I think that he's a little bit of a better pitcher than what the raw ERA would indicate, as it's not like he's giving up a bunch of walks, and it's not like he's being completely pelted for home runs. He's giving up 0.9 home runs and 2.2 walks per 9 innings. 5.44 ERA compared to about a 3.70 fielding independent, but he's just not fooling anyone with his stuff. He's given up 3+ runs in each out of his last 4 starts, and it's not like Chris Paddock has been the Mona Lisa Vito of getting swings and misses as well. 4.95 ERA, 6.3 strikeouts per 9 innings, more like a 4.34 fielding dependent. Entered into the All-Star break in very rough form, giving up 3+ runs in 4 out of his last 5 starts, so I did set a total of an 11.2. I'm going to be in on the over, even with the Twins being pedestrian with regards to their lineup. This has not been an amazing lineup. This has not been a terrible lineup, but Byron Buxton, he has been very special for these guys. 21 home runs, about a 350 on base, and then you've got a quartet of guys between 10 and 13 home runs as far this season. Matt Wallner, Harrison Bader, Cody Clemens, and Trevor Larnach. Larnach, along with Ty France, both hitting about a 250. Ryan Jeffers is hitting about a 250 as well. Harrison Bader, 330 on base. He's been able to move line. Carlos Correa, you just expect more than a 304 on base and 7 home runs out of him. You're paying him more money than that. And for the Minnesota Twins, this has been a bullpen that has been on the fritz, currently in the bottom 10 of the big leagues with regards to our bullpen ERA, but I mean, the elite guys have actually been very good for this team. Louis Varland, Yohan Duran, Danny Kalum, these guys have been able to give you a sub-275 ERA. Justin Topa, Griffin Jackson, the long guys have been really the issue for this team, and for the Colorado Rockies, well, their issues are pretty much everywhere, as it's a Rockies bullpen that is currently in the bottom 4 in the big leagues in terms of their ERA. I mean, they've had a few guys that have stepped up a little bit for them. Victor Vodnik, Jimmy Herget, Jake Bird. These guys have been able to give you sub-4 ERA, but for the Colorado Rockies, even though they are much better with their offense when they're at home rather than away from home, it's not like this has been a team that's been absolutely mashing at home. 4.1 runs per game at home with your ballpark being Coors Field is not great to say the least. Hunter Goodman has been great, though. North of 50 RBI, 17 home runs thus far this season. If you do take a look at Mickey Moniak and Ryan McMahon, both guys have given you 8 home runs apiece when they've been at home. McMahon is still only hitting about a 240 at home. He's just had a bad year. Mickey Moniak at home is hitting about a 290. Jordan Beck at home is hitting nearly 300. And this is a team that as a whole is about 40 points better at home rather than on the road. But even Kyle Farmer at home has been hitting about a $172. So you've got all sorts of issues there. And I do think that the Twins go out there, take it to the Colorado Rockies, and get the job done. I'm going to be willing to lay that run line and so I tell 11.2, so I'm also in on the over, and that'll wrap things up for the Friday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, they mean does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. Other ways, find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated, and then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via the 5-star review, and it's a big thanks to Adam Rosenberg every single time we get him on the show. He does great work and provides great insights, so big thanks to him for joining me once again, and I'll be with you guys every single day throughout the baseball season on this podcast, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.